Hello! Episode 2 of Jetlag South Korea has dropped, which means it's time for another game analysis episode. Before we continue, spoiler alert as always. Hopefully you've watched episode 2 by now, otherwise this won't make sense. So speaking of episode 2, let's do a quick recap of what happened. Sam begins his run at Ixan, so the blockers get a 1 hour head start. They do the obvious move, going up to Osong and blocking it. Then they head down to Daejeon. As I mentioned, I think this was an almost forced move because they needed to block the approach from Seo Daejeon. So they went here, and based on what they mentioned during the episode, they would have put a roadblock down here if their hand wasn't so terrible. They drew 2 curses and a battle challenge. Also, something interesting to note is that because they hit their first note, Osong, before the 1 hour jail period was up, they did not get to draw a 4th card. If you noticed in the first run, Ben's run, the blockers did get to play with 4 cards at the start. 3 starting cards plus 1 card from going to their first note because they hit their first note after the 1 hour jail period. So already they're in a bad spot. Their draw is lousy and they aren't able to secure Daejeon properly. So because of this, they were forced to hit more notes to get a better hand, which prompted them to go down to Dongdaegu so that they could defend the eastern part of the country. Unfortunately for them, that move gave Sam all the information they needed. So from Sam's point of view, when he left Ixan, previously, I predicted that he would go down south and take the south coast route because it was a guaranteed 300 km-ish score, but instead he tackled them head on and went straight to Osong. Now, this is a very ballsy move, but really in hindsight, I really should have expected it. It's the same guy that decided that hiding in a populated international airport was a very good idea in a game of hide and seek. So what can I say? This guy is a risk taker, and in this case it definitely paid off given that the roadblock was basically free for Sam in that particular situation. So he was able to play, importantly he was able to threaten the north-south fork, which I mentioned was a very important part of this game. The fact that he could go in either direction meant that the blockers had absolutely no chance of fencing him off. They had to pick one side, and well, as soon as they reviewed their position, the runner, Sam, can simply just go the other way, which he ended up doing. So he went up north, all the way up to Yongsan. And as I mentioned, as soon as the runner gets on the high-speed line, and the blockers are not in front of the runner, that's it. That's the game. So this is how the rail network in South Korea looks from a geographically more accurate point of view. What Ben and Adam did was they went from Daejeon to Dongdaegu in order to fill up their hand of cards, and then they went over to Gimcheon so that they could set up their southern defense. This was before they realized that Sam was going up north. Once they made that realization, they were already... So once again, they went down to Dongdaegu, they went up to Gimcheon, and as they were leaving Gimcheon, they found out that Sam was in fact going up north, and they had no hope of catching him. The next best option was to intercept him somewhere around the northeastern part of the country, which required them to stop at Daejeon and then transfer back down to Dongdaegu here, so that they could set up a defense on the eastern side of the country. So what you can see from this geographically accurate map is that the distance between Dongdaegu and Daejeon is actually pretty far. It spans pretty much half the width of the country. So while they were faffing about along this very long line, Sam basically just got to accumulate a lot of distance, and this is why the boys mentioned that they are in a truly horrible spot, which they are. So while Sam gets to go up north, you would think that the high-speed rail ends at Yongsan. That is how it is depicted on the map, right? This thick line ends here at Yongsan. But as it turns out, he is actually allowed to travel up to Cheongnyangni and then transfer over to the high-speed rail network on the north of the country, which is along this line right here. So I did actually bring this up as a possibility in my game analysis episode last time. I mentioned that there was an express train to Gangneung. I said that I don't think they would allow the runner to transit at a non-nodal station in Cheongnyangni because this route is incredibly OP. Well, it looks like it's allowed. And not only is it allowed, Sam actually managed to one-up me to his credit. He didn't find this route. It looks like the same route that I suggested, but no, he found a better route, one that left earlier and got him further into the east. He left at 7:16, just like 16 minutes after the game time started, and was slated to arrive at Donghae at 9:39 a.m. This is incredibly early. It's still well in the morning. He has all the time in the world to stop by, drink a cup of coffee, and then continue on his merry way, while the boys are still languishing very far away, halfway across the country. This is absolutely insane. So this map is kind of misleading. The high speed line is this map gives you the impression that a high speed line cuts down the country diagonally from Seoul to Busan, but really there's this high speed segment here as well. So this is a more accurate reflection of the high speed network. It's actually one long line from the northeast to the southeast that is basically curled in onto itself. So Sam basically gets to ride for a better half of it and accumulate a whole lot of distance. By the end of the episode, he has already beaten Ben's distance and is slated to get much more. I said that this was very game breaking and I stand by it. I think that a good game is one that forces interactivity between the opponents, and if the runner gets to bypass the nodes just like that and skip past all the stations that they are meant to interact with the runner at, that makes for a lot less of a interactive, a lot less of a fun game, I think. So that's a bit unfortunate. Based on my research of the high-speed rail lines across from Yongsan to Donghae, it seems like they just randomly stop at whatever stations they like. They could skip Sangbong, they could skip Seowonju, they could skip Jinbu. In fact, even if you take some of the other stations along the line, like these that I've mapped here, all of them can be bypassed in some way, shape, or form. So if I were to play this game and design it, I would add more nodes, even though, the runner can still find some way around them. But at least having more nodes favors the blockers over the runner just by a bit, because whenever blockers pass a node, at least they get to draw more cards, and whenever the runner's train stops at a node, at least there's the potential of being forced into an interaction with the blockers via roadblocks or battle challenges or so on. As it stands, the runners, whether it's Sam right now or a future runner, will simply teleport from Yongsan to Donghae or vice versa, which is pretty insane. The other thing I might consider, if changing up the game, is to give the blockers more agency in their roadblocks. We saw what happened with Sam. He ran right into a roadblock deliberately, yet still managed to overcome it with ease, simply because the roadblocks are actually designed to be fairly doable by the runners. I think it would have been a lot more exciting if the roadblocks were competitive in the same way that the battle challenges are. Those are exciting. The Turo game was very exciting, and I think the roadblocks could have been like that as well. Something like the runner must score at least as high as the blockers when they're finding something good on Google Maps. Something like that would have at least given the blockers more agency and some fighting chance. As it stood, Ben and Adam basically had one chance to stop Sam, and that was at Osong. And they couldn't because they only drew one roadblock, and it was a trivially easy roadblock given the situation and the place they were at. What we saw was that instead of the blockers having agency, the agency was instead relegated to the game designers. It is so difficult to design challenges, much less a full deck of challenges, that are balanced just perfectly. Because if the roadblocks are too easy, what happens is the runner can clear them trivially, like Sam did. If the roadblocks are too hard, then Ben and Adam would not even be able to play those roadblocks down. There's a very narrow window of just right in terms of balancing these challenges, and you can't get it right every time. And you know what? There's no need to get it right every time. Why balance it yourself when you can have the competitors balance it themselves by pitting them against each other? So to sum up, I think this game has great potential. If it didn't, I wouldn't be hyper-analyzing it right now. So full credit to the Jetlag team for designing such an amazing game. It just needs a bit more fine-tuning and balance, in my opinion, for it to be a lot more interactive and replayable. But I guess that's not what you're here for. You're not here to hear me rant about game design. You're here to see what happens in episode 3. Or at least, my predictions. So let's dive into the analysis. Where we left off, Sam was riding the Northern Corridor line and would have been slated to arrive at Donghae at 9:39 a.m. Meanwhile, Ben and Adam started at Dongdaegu at 7 a.m. and they took a train up to Pohang. Right? This is actually a direct train. It doesn't stop at any other station, so it bypasses all the nodes and goes straight to Pohang. So where the episode ended, this train that they were taking had the lights go out, right? So that's where we left off. Now, Pohang's an interesting choice. It's a fairly busy train station despite not being a node on this game map. So more importantly, it is located along this line between Seogyeongju and Donghae, which means that they can drop a curse to affect the entire line. So what was their plan after that? What was their crazy connection? Well, they actually managed to find a 3-minute transit from 8:08 to 8:11 to get out of Pohang after dropping their curse. It goes down to Gyeongju, where they then make a 10-minute transfer up to Yeongju. That was their plan. They needed to do this so that they could get to Yeongju at a reasonable time, 10:38, and that would have allowed them to throw down a block here, be it a battle challenge or a roadblock. This way, they said they would be able to cover both bases. They can cover Sam going down west or Sam taking the East Coast line down. Both lines are affected by a curse or a block, respectively. Okay, that was their plan. Is it good? That's the question. So let's flip back to Sam's point of view and see what his options are. Well, those two are of his options. The west option that goes down to Yeongju leaves at 11:02, so about an hour and a half after he arrives at Donghae, and is slated to arrive in Yeongju at almost 2 p.m. So this doesn't seem like a very appealing option. Ben and Adam have a good 2 hours plus to find the best roadblock to cut his run short, or to practice that battle challenge that they're holding. So the other option, of course, Sam does not know this, but he knows that he'll be giving a lot of time to Ben and Adam, who have accumulated quite a few cards. Sam's other option is to go down east and take the curse. If he does this, that would be a 9:51 service that leaves Donghae, and the curse says that he must disembark his train at the next station, which is this one here, I believe. That is Samcheok. According to the train schedules, he will be forced to disembark at 10:11. From there, he has a 6 minutes transfer to a train that goes back up north. So lucky for Sam, or by design, we should say, this East Coast line has a reasonable frequency. Trains run every around 2 hours or so. So he's actually able to catch the train back and to Donghae and then take the next service that would have headed south, right? The first service was at 9:51. The next service is at 11:48. This would get him into Pohang at 13:53. So, if you're Sam, you do not know what curse is on this line. You don't know that's a U-turn curse, but you do know that it's... I believe from the curses we've seen so far, it seems like the runner is usually forced to disembark some point along the line. With that in mind, from Sam's point of view, he can either go west, which doesn't have a curse, or go east and get in earlier and make more progress because Pohang is further south than Yongju. He covers more distance. So this seems like the option, a pretty good option. Now here's where things get better. This train actually goes down all the way to Seogyeongju and Gyeongju. So these are potentially places where Ben and Adam could be laying down the trap for Sam. But if Sam was tuned into the train schedules, he would have found this service. And here's where the callback happens. This service is the same service that Ben and Adam took at the start of the day. The train that blacked out at the end of the episode. Remember that it went directly from Dongdaegu to Pohang? Well, if a train goes one way, surely it runs the other way. And indeed it does. So if Sam finds this exact same service, he can make a transfer at Pohang, 10-minute transfer that gets him into Dongdaegu at 2:38 p.m. bypassing all other nodes. He only needs to hit the Dongdaegu node. So this is a very powerful option, and there's buffer room. There's room for error because he could take, even if he's delayed by one train, even if he was forced to disembark the 9:51 train and had to take the next train south, he would see that he can still make this service down to Dongdaegu at a reasonable time. Whereas with the Yongju option, if he goes to Yongju at 2 p.m., he would most likely miss the next service down to Dongdaegu, which I believe goes down this way, because it departs 1 minute right after. So if Yongju is blocked for any reason, he's done. Like, he cannot make this service. He would have to take the next train out south, which goes to Gimcheon, which covers less distance and departs later in the afternoon. So Yongju is just a very undesirable node for the runner to go to unless they really want to maximize that distance. The East Coast route is way more frequent, way faster, and way safer. Right? We saw that all he needs to do is to survive one block at Dongdaegu, and that allows him to access the southern part of Korea. Pretty powerful. So really, as long as Sam is not too intimidated by the curse that would be placed down by Ben and Adam, I would say he is very favored. It gets even worse for the blockers because you would think, according to the map, that from Dongdaegu, he could possibly be caught at Samnanjin. But there is a direct service from Dongdaegu to Suncheon, all the way here. This allows Sam to rack up some considerable, a very, very good high score. Right? Just to show you. He takes a Dongdaegu to Masan service. He could start at Masan or Jinju, I think. It doesn't really matter. He gets in the late afternoon. He just has to twiddle his thumbs and call it a day. Check into his hotel early. Next day in the morning, he takes the morning service going west. And you'll notice that these two trains, neither of them stop at Samnangjin. This one goes directly all the way to Suncheon. Why? If you look at the geographical map, it makes a lot of sense. The train line going down from Dongdaegu goes down here, whereas Samnangjin is here. So there's no reason for the train to go through Samnangjin. It will just go straight all the way down. You will only pass by Samnangjin if you're approaching from Busan, going up here. So this is an incredibly strong option. To recap for Sam, if he finds this option, he will realize that the only stop that he needs to make is Dongdaegu. This is the only node at which the blockers can potentially intercept him at. Otherwise, this is a failsafe route. So even after taking the U-turn curse and having to return to Donghae, he can still make the choice between west and east. But looking at this, I think it is really obvious that this eastern route that only stops at Dongdaegu, this is by far the best option for him. The only two questions really are, will he be deterred by the curse, and will he actually find this Pohang to Dongdaegu route? Those are the only two questions. From the blocker's point of view, because of exactly what I just said, I think it is a huge mistake for them to continue on with their plan to block Yongju. So, yes. Why is it a mistake? Because they are leaving the high-speed network. This is incredibly risky because Yongju, by going to Yongju, they are effectively stranding themselves up here. Remember how we mentioned that it's going to be forever before they find a way back down onto the high-speed rail network? Yeah, you don't want to be stuck in the middle of nowhere as the runners. As the blockers. So what they should be doing, really, is to set up the defense along the high-speed network where the runner is more guaranteed to stop, because there is no guarantee that Sam will stop at Yongju. They are purely relying on the deterrence of the curse. They need to secure this high-speed triangle, put down blocks on both Gyeongju's and Dongdaegu. This would be the optimal move. Dongdaegu in particular needs to be defended at all costs because of the route that I just mentioned. If their rules permit putting down multiple cards on the same node, they really should consider doing that. And just hope for the best, because as we've seen so far, even with the best effort from the blockers, the runner can still have a good chance of clearing the challenges. If Sam does clear the Dongdaegu challenge, or does manage to find his way out of Gyeongju and start running down to Busan, the blockers can attempt to intercept Sangnam-jin if Sam is going down to Busan. Otherwise, if he did the Dongdaegu play and clears Dongdaegu, the best they can do is to throw cursors down along this route, force him to backtrack to Dongdaegu and try to get ahead of him on some of the services that go towards Suncheon. It's a very Hail Mary move, but let's be honest. Ben and Adam are in a very horrible spot right now, and they're about to dig themselves a deeper hole. If you're a Ben and Adam fan, you want them to miss their connection at Pohang. You do not want them to go to Yongju. You want them to miss their connection and force them to reconsider their options and to deploy the defenses further south, where they have more control over train timings on the high-speed rail network. So that's the state of play. We'll see if this plays out the way I described. See you next week.